right? Like Google search now is getting disrupted after so many decades of monopoly, right? So I think when we think about it as a tech system, then we have to start applying a lot of different lenses to this, right? Because we are entering a space of competition. So we have a great system, right? By far, one of the best in the world. Internationally, you have the SWIFT system, right? Now you have digital currencies coming in, and digital currencies are a very different animal from payment systems, right? Because it is a full stack disruption. So our UPI is more like a front end, middleware sort of disruption, whereas this is from the genesis, the currencies, digital, the banking system, the financial system, all of it will change in the future, right? And that's a very big shift that's happening, right? And I think in that system, there are few countries that are very focused on gaining asymmetric advantages in that game, right? Because that is a global game. And we've seen with cryptocurrency, which is an area that I work on the regulations of, right? That has been, I think it's now very clear to everybody that there are a lot of issues in that system, right? There was a lot of speculation. There was a lot of Ponzi models. And I think with this whole contagion that happened, that's come out very well. But that system potentially can be a very efficient system, right? If there is any steady backing in terms of stable coins, if there is any kind of regulated rules set for how the system works, that can be a dangerous system because it's an open source system, right? And I think when you look at universal systems, you have to look at open source very seriously, right? Because those systems get adoption very fast, very globally. And once they get adoption, it's very hard to shake them, right? And I think we saw with China's digital yuan, which was the first thing that our think tank had studied. We had reverse engineered that system. And I think, you know, with the best efforts of the Chinese government, it's still not able to gain as much adoption as a WeChat, you know, or a 10-cent payments. It's not able to get to that adoption. It's not being picked up by people that much. And we have to really look at those adoption trends seriously. We have to really look at, you know, what we are competing against seriously. Even if it looks weak today, things can change very fast in technology. And when they change overnight, and then it's very hard to do anything about it.
So we'll talk a little more about cryptocurrencies later, but right now I want to pick up on one thing you said, right? Which is the cryptocurrency enthusiasts talk about how it makes payments across the world very easy, and more traditional payment systems have been struggling with that, cross-border payments being a difficult challenge, right? So what exactly is are the challenges there? Is it just KYC AML? Is it government regulations or fears of misuse, or is it incumbents and regulatory capture? So I'm not sure who this question is for. So whoever feels like answering.
So everybody's looking at me. Okay. So okay, look, I think first of all, you know, when Tanvi was talking about, let me just trace back, start from there. You know, when she spoke about, you know, the digital yuan is not able to make any effort in China, I think we just need to go one level below, right? I think that's where we have to give a credit to that we have RBI, and RBI's first principle for payment system has been the interoperability, right? And whatever platform India has built up, you know, India has looked at first principle thanks to RBI as interoperability, and that has ensured that it did not create a closed loop islands, right? So today, and when you look at China, the regulation didn't exist. The players in a closed loop manner became too big to regulate, and now that interoperability doesn't exist, right? So today, I think that's where we stand for. So I think what yuan has to deal is you know, they have the digital yuan has to be better than Alipay and WeChat, which is a very uphill task for China to deal with, which are not interoperable, right? So now coming back to India, And I would like to focus on technology actually. So I strongly believe the blockchain and the decentralized technologies are not only cryptocurrencies. We can efficiently use the technology, and whatever RBI has launched, the central bank digital currency, the decentralized technologies are being used today, right? For the token creation, the token distribution, and those kind of things. So I think this whole technology, I think we are very bullish on these technologies. We are not bullish on cryptocurrencies.
From our perspective, I think what we can see in the cryptocurrency is that, and RBI going ahead with our own CBDC, is that, you know, the cryptocurrencies, which are right now very popular, are also dominated in dollar or euro. And therefore, we have to be in this game and make our rupee also popular. And whenever it becomes, as it has not caught up, only few countries have CBDC currency, and the bigger ones do not have it. But whenever it becomes popular, because it's likely, as Tanvi was saying, we are there in the game. So, and therefore, the erstwhile domination of yuan or dollar or any other currency is also challenged from our side. Thank you.
Would you like to add something?
I mean, there's just a lot to unpack on this topic, but I would say that on cryptocurrency, I think that ecosystem is undergoing a sort of seismic shift right now, right? And I think after this contagion and what we're working on right now are the regulations on the G20 side, which are coming very fast. That will fundamentally change the look and feel and structure of the system, right? And there's a lot going on under the surface in terms of, who's really setting these international rules and standards, right? Because they are getting set in the next 2 months, the international regulation on this will be out for global consultation, right? Those rules are getting set right now, but who's really setting them? And once they do get set, I mean, crypto is down now, right? But we've seen the scary rates at which it could grow, and it has grown, right, in the past. And by the way, that activity is not really stopped in the ecosystem, right? So my job is really to look at what's happening under the surface of it. And under the surface, it's like a duck, like it's calm on the surface, but it's paddling furiously, right? And so a lot of new tech is getting built, which is far more formidable than anything that was there right now. In terms of the rules that are getting built, a lot is coming in terms of prudential regulation of stable coins, which will change this volatility, stability issue in crypto. And then if it gains adoption, then we have to be very wary about where we stand, because India, despite all our efforts at disincentivizing this activity, we are today sitting on the highest number of users of crypto in the world. We have the largest ecosystem in the world of on-chain transactions, right? And we have to look at it seriously. There is a lot more going on than we think. There's a lot more going on past the headlines. And I think that has to feed into the strategy of everything we do with payment systems, with our digital rupee and all of that.
Okay. Since we have ended up on cryptocurrency and regulation, let me ask the main question related to that, which is in India, but also all over the world, there is just a lot of confusion related to regulation of crypto and what are the laws related to that, right? In some places, you're not even sure whether it is legal or not. You don't know whether it is a security or not. You don't know how the tax, how it is going to be taxed. So 2 questions. One is, why is there so much confusion? Why isn't there clarity? And second question is, what would be your suggestion? I mean, should we jump in and regulate quickly, or should it be a wait and watch approach?
Yeah, so I think that's a lot of very big questions. So I will try to keep a concise answer. I think when it comes to crypto regulation, that's a space I've worked on in, I think, over 11 countries now. And I think The biggest reason why there's no clarity, as people say, is because the real issue is very unspoken, right? The real issue is on sovereignty. And I think for every country, it's about having this completely parallel ecosystem. So I think the big dilemma that was there and which is coming out now again is, why should we regulate it, right? Why should, when we regulate, we give it legitimacy. So why should we regulate it? It's not our system. It's not our responsibility, right? And people are dealing with it at their own risk. And if you see, many countries took that approach for a while. We also did, right? The RBI gave many notices that, you know, this is, you're entering this at your own risk. We do not support any activity on this, right? So I think that's been the biggest reason why people feel there's no clarity. That is very deliberate also, I think, right? Now, when you think about after FTX, the game has changed a lot, right? And I've been working in the regulatory space for this for about 5 years. I've never seen this much intensity of activity, this much intensity of coordination. And I think now it's very much a global regulatory game, right? And the first issues that were tackled were on AML and KYC. The FATF did that in 2019. Those solutions are still not implementable, right? Now we are looking at the whole spectrum of issues, whether it's prudential, macro-prudential, whether it's to deal with the issuance, disclosures, you know, the market integrity, all of those issues are being looked into now, right? So the rules are going to come, but I think the challenge remains for most governments in terms of how do you effectively enforce such rules, right? Because financial regulation has been intermediary-based regulation for decades. It's been in that culture, right? And when you're in a decentralized environment, like, who is the intermediary, right? So what we've done so far, I would say, in the whole financial regulation space is we've tried very hard to identify intermediaries, you know, so these virtual asset service providers or VASP that we talk about. And that's the approach that's going on right now. Let's take rules that exist today. Let's find intermediaries in the system and apply the rules to them, right? My personal view on this is that I'm not sure if this is going to succeed, right? Because it might be wishful thinking as well, because there are some fundamental differences in the way the system works. So my recommendation, if you say from, you know, how we should approach it, I think there has to be a lot more grappling with the technical aspects of this. You need very tech-based approaches for them to be effective. And I think any regulation that you do in the space, I'm not a fan of jump in and go big. I think that's very risky to do in like big financial systems. But I think you need scenario-based approaches, right? You need scenario-based approaches in terms of, you know, if the global dynamic is this, then what do I do? If, you know, the levels of activity reach this level, then what do we do, right? It has to be nuanced like that. Otherwise, it's not going to be effective.
Yeah, I think to quote US Supreme Court Justice from earlier this week, he said, none of us are cryptocurrency experts here, but still they have to now pass some, I mean, basically they have to take decisions regarding that. So that's going to be a tricky challenge. But let's pause here for a minute and see if there are any audience questions related to the topics covered so far.
Hello. Yeah. Hi. My name is Kripakar. I'm from the Ministry of External Affairs. My question is for Mr. Dilip. Clearly, UPI is a disruptive, you know, it's a disruptive revolution. So my question is very straightforward. When do ATMs, credit cards, debit cards become obsolete? Do they become obsolete? And I see that MasterCard is sponsoring a lot many cricket tournaments. Are they very late to this field? What's your view on that?
So, okay. See, I think the RBI's vision, RBI has been releasing the payment system vision for every 3 years, last 18 years. I think the simple principle which has been used is the consumer choice, right? So the consumer choice is to have the debit card, credit card, IMPS, NEFT, RTGS, UPI, Bharat bill payment, right? You know, the internet banking, mobile banking, the wallets. So there is variety of choices which have been given to the consumer, right? And all in interoperable manner. Now the question is, what is that consumer will prefer? Whatever the consumer likes, he has a choice to prefer. And this is what we want, because consumer today still relies on cash, large amount of cash. And we are looking at how he transfers to the any of the payment modes. So, and I think till the time he's moving away from cash to digital, we are okay, whatever choice he takes. The second point is the cards, right? The cards has been already getting tokenized, right? So whether it's a RuPay card, Visa card, MasterCard, it is already tokenized. We have been trying to make some innovation on credit cards getting added in UPI. So I think there are few banks live now, and the credit card, the RuPay cards, credit cards on UPI has been already operationalized. When you say debit card, technically it's an account, right? UPI has already made that account digital. The UPI for foreign nationals has been made enabled now. In next couple of months, it should be in a full steam, right? So foreign nationals, whether it's NRE, NRO customers, so they can operate UPI from outside or coming to India, their account can be operated with the foreign numbers as well. We have also operationalized the ATM machine QR scan and withdraw, right? Scan and cash is what we call. So we are trying to create a horizontal innovation, vertical innovation in variety of payment system. But finally, the customer is the king, citizen is the king, and let him use whatever he wants, whatever he likes, he will use. So I think the objective is not to cannibalize any other payment system. The objective is to cannibalize cash. Clearly.
Yeah. Can I ask a follow-up question there?
Yes.
Which is that, I mean, earlier also you said that we want to reach the speed of cash, and now you're talking of cannibalizing cash, right? So what are the advantages that cash continues to have so far, and can we hope to vanquish all of them?
So I think the cash exists, and there are many other reasons, but I think the primary reason is the trust in and awareness of the digital payment system, in my assessment, right? And I think that trust and awareness for a 1.2 billion population is a long haul, right? Because people are at various stages of literacy awareness. So it naturally going to take next 3 to 5 years to get majority of the citizens on the digital payments in my assessment. The second property of the cash is anonymity, right? And we believe that with the recent launch of central bank digital currency, this anonymity will be protected because it's a digital cash. It's like a digital form of physical cash. So I believe if that is protected, technically CBDC will have a great, while the CBDC has much better technology than the digital money, right? Because digital money is mostly the message based, but the central bank digital currency offers the programmability and the tokenization of the asset in a big way, right? It has a great advantage back for the economy. So I believe that, and we'll have to see how things pan out in next few years. But I think if we are able to protect that, if we are able to give the protection of anonymity to the citizens with some fears, I think the cash reduction is inevitable. I don't think we are talking about cashless anymore. We are talking about less cash. And I think we are happy to get cash to GDP ratio to a single digit number as any other developed country.
We can take one more question. Yeah, Shrikant.
You know, there's an interesting phenomena. As your UPI transactions are going up, the amount of cash, if you look at RBI reports, the amount of cash in the system is also increasing. Actually, it should reduce. Point number one. Point number two, what is the income tax view on UPI? Because, you know, I've had scrutinies where the tax officer was asking me for a 5,000 rupee entry. So if I transfer 10,000 rupees to Naveen, what will the tax officer do on that entry? I would really like to understand that.
So let me take the cash first. First question is in my authority, so I will take the first one. Second, I'll pass it on to sir. Income tax is not his authority as well. Okay. So I think the way I look at cash, right? I think we saw the cash decrease initially after the demonetization, naturally, because the largest currency denominations were withdrawn. But we saw again the rise back. And we saw that COVID, again, the ticket sizes on the ATM got increased, right? Because what happened was the government did a large benefit transfers under the PM Jan Kalyan Yojana. So obviously the cash out was much higher in the rural areas. And we also saw that some hoarding behaviors, cash hoarding behaviors in the during the COVID period. However, we saw the digital payment increase dramatically last few years. And I see that last 1 year, the rate of growth has dropped down. Okay. And I think it's a very positive sign, but we'll have to still see whether we are able to sustain that drop. We are still at 13.5% of cash to GDP ratio. And you don't have to see the increase in the cash in circulation. You should look at always the ratio, because that gives us the great indicator that how are we doing on actual less cash economy. Our assessment is next 3 to 5 years. I think we should aspire to be a single higher digit cash to GDP ratio with the growth in digital payments. That's what is our target is. Income tax, I don't know who would like to take.
Yeah, actually we have time. So
Sir, I hope I answered your question on the cash. Second one is more important.
Yeah.
Okay, I have no idea here. So
On income tax, I think anything which comes on your ledger, income tax can scrutinize, but also cash it can scrutinize. So I think that should not be, it's up to the income tax. Anything which is done through UPI also comes on your passbook. So
and
yeah.
there are two secretaries who has been in the finance division here, Gopalan Saab and Anup Saab. We'll also take their inputs later on this offline.
Okay, actually Lito is back, so let me get back to the panel here. Thanks for coming back, Lito, in spite of technical issues. We've been talking about the use of innovative payment systems to primarily give users choices, more choices, so that they can, it makes their life easier. And that brings me to inclusion of payment systems, right? It's something you have spent a lot of time working on. When we are innovating with payment systems, is there a danger of leaving some people behind? And if yes, how is it? What do you need to be careful about? Or how do you overcome these issues?
Thing is that the Philippines has actually patterned its payments interoperability model from the UPI, the successful UPI model of India. So, and of course, thanks to India for that very successful model, we now have that interoperable payments system under the National Digital Payment System, and it's called the InstaPay and PesoNet. So, and of course, if there is that under silver line in COVID-19 global health pandemic, it's actually the high adoption of consumers to digital payments. And the good news is that we have sustained that growth, that exponential growth over time amidst the pandemic, and we've seen up to even during the time that we're now going back to near normal situation after the lockdowns, still seen sustained growth in the payment, in the InstaPay and PesoNet interoperable payments and acceptance of QRPH even in far-flung areas in the Philippines. And to your question about if there are some issues or dangers or concerns pertaining to the adoption to interoperable payments or digital payments, I think definitely one of those the issue on cybersecurity, and we've seen quite a number of phishing, and you'll be surprised, still the vulnerability of consumers pertaining to them being victimized by the fraudsters, or by the scammers. is also quite very alarming. That's why that's why there is that collective effort, no, or concerted effort across stakeholders in the ecosystem, together with regulators, the players in the industry, to really aggressively push for consumer education, no, specifically on how to combat fraud, how to combat cyber threats, and in fact, we have seen a very healthy, collaboration across all players in the industry. And I think even beyond COVID-19, we will still see steady growth in terms of adoption to digital payments. And in fact, the good news as well is that the Philippine government, through the Central Bank of the Philippines or Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas, came up with its digital payments transformation roadmap that it has two main outcomes or goals. No, one is to convert at least 50% of financial transactions into digital, and to onboard at least 70% of Filipino adults to formal financial system by end of 2023. And the good news is that we will be able to achieve these twin goals even before the end of this year. So, and of course, part of that is, of course, the enabling regulations pertaining to digital banks, as well as to open finance, as well as on regulatory sandboxes, right? So I think Philippines is one of the very few countries which are very lucky to have a very engaging and proactive and dynamic regulators in promoting further financial innovations, no, towards inclusive growth.
Thanks. So one thing that you have done some work in is related to accessibility of technology for all sections of society, and I think a term you have used is empathy-based banking. The idea being that just making the technology accessible to the people and awareness is not enough, but there needs to be a human touch to drive both trust and usage. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yes, it's all about innovations with empathy, right? It's not just about doing innovations for the heck of doing it, right? It's not all about supply-driven proposition, but more of a demand-driven one. You may have the sexiest app in the world or the most robust platform that you could offer your target market. But if you are not connecting your message, if the message not being sent across effectively to your target market, your proposition or your product or your platform is doomed to fail, right? So I think it's really more on how you ensure that your proposition in terms of pushing for speed and scale in digital innovations is practically anchored on the needs and wants and of your target market, right? So, and in doing so, it's really more about having to deliver that awesome customer experience, that having that effective UI UX or user experience or customer experience in terms of you being able to second guess the requirements or the needs of your customers, right? And having to really feel the emotions, of your public in terms of them using your technology, right? So because having to onboard a customer easy, but having to engage them and use it on a regular basis is another story, right? So it's all about sustain them and have to make sure that they keep on using your app or your technology or platform, and having to really transform their lives using those technologies that you offer them, right? So because beyond of course, financial metrics would always be the primary consideration, but of course, returns, in terms of you being able to provide that social impact to your customers.
Thank you. Dilip, do we have examples of how for adoption of say UPI, the human element was crucial, not just making an app accessible and easy, but human beings had to be involved to drive adoption?
No, 100%, because we
Yes.
have seen that during the COVIDs, the elderly population was actually the youngsters actually helped the elderly population to onboard onto UPI, how to use the digital payments, and I think that has given them a lot of confidence to use the technology. And I think the adaptability to the technology of Indians has been always a great advantage to us.
Yeah, this is something technologists like us keep forgetting, that the human element is very important. Switching gears a
It
little
is
bit
very
to
important.
switching gears a little bit to what we talked about related to CBDC, right? Dilip said that one of the, a couple of the important features of CBDC where it scores over other payment systems is that is one of the things that can allow anonymity of payments. Of course, there is programmability and there is asset tokenization, right? Tokenize other things, and then when it is programmable, a whole bunch of applications are enabled. Some countries are significantly ahead of us on this path. What can we learn from their experiences? Are there like do's and don'ts, Tanvi?
Yeah.
Well, I think if I may first, sorry.
Yeah, sorry, go ahead,
If
Lito.
I can, sorry. If I can just, I think this is quite very interesting because Philippines is also CBDC. We have about 30 pilot central bank or VS the lead. I think this is something that even
I think we'll get back to Lito in a little while when the connection is better. But in the meantime, Tanvi.
Sure. I think on CBDC, so honestly, it's not
it
as
allows them,
Um,
it allows them to boost. Sorry.
Sorry, Lito, I think your connection was pretty bad for the last like 15, 20 seconds. We
Okay,
couldn't
sorry.
hear anything.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so I think very quickly, I think there are key takeaways, that we can learn from the experiences of other countries, who are into CBDC. I think first is it allows them to boost financial inclusion by providing access to digital payments. And second, it can benefit the economy of a country as the central bank has direct and real-time access, to the money circulating within the country. And I think I think the third or the last would be very important, and it's that it requires a robust, resilient, and reliable infrastructure and experts. And one of the examples there is China has been building tremendous digital infrastructure to boost its capacity. And I think this is something that other countries should also replicate. And good thing that we have some models, where we can pattern our implementations. Thank you.
Thanks. Yeah, Tanvi.
Yeah. So I think on CBDC, CBDC has been around in the consciousness for like, 8-9 years, but I think it's only really taken off in the last 2 years. It's only after the digital yuan pilots that many governments were seriously looking at it. And I think on CBDC, I frankly think there's a lot less that has been explored in terms of, the edge of innovation here. I think the predominant concern for most central banks has been that we need to minimize disruption, right? And that's fair. I think it's also the RBI's principle that we need to minimize disruption with the CBDC. But if you see what's happening with the Fed experiments, for example, I think their experiments have been some of the most interesting compared to what we see in the rest of the world. So if you see existing debates on CBDC have been, should it be token based or account based CBDC? Should we have DLT based or other tech based, right? But I think if you see Project Hamilton, which the Boston Fed did, and that was a study they did with MIT, and that was one of the most interesting papers, I think, till date on CBDC, and it broke through all these debates, right? It said we can have simultaneously both token and account based. We can have simultaneously standard based approaches. And I think that's one of the first instances I've seen of people actually bringing that innovation lens into CBDC. I think also now at the BIS, they're finally starting to look into how would DeFi sort of come into a CBDC environment. I think that's a space we're looking at with a lot of interest. But I think in CBDC right now, I frankly don't agree that it's going to be a system that competes with cryptocurrency. I think these are entirely two different trains. They're going in entirely two different directions. And I think there's, for obvious reasons, I don't think it makes sense for central banks to build systems that disruptive as what crypto is doing, right? So I think that debate has not really been given justice yet in terms of, just how much innovation is even possible with the CBDC, right? We're just assuming that it will happen.
So one question for you is CBDC, not necessarily as it is implemented now, but like a future version. Do you see that as something that can help drive, some of our objectives in external relations?
Well, my knowledge of CBDC is very limited, but as I said earlier, that when the other currencies are coming as CBDC, other countries are coming, and there is crypto which is denominated in US dollars or euros. So we have to have something in rupees, and that is why the RBI is doing the pilot project, and probably after some time it will become legal and universal. So and at that time, when we are looking towards universalization of rupee, CBDC also will be important. This CBDC will also be important.
Thank you. Let's open it up for audience questions at this point. Yeah.
Hi, my name is Dinanath Kolkar from TCS. I'm just going back to the topic of the panel discussion where you talked about revolution on the economy, and specifically in the context of India and agriculture being such a key. And going back to Tanvi's point, that should we look at a scenario of agriculture and look at a vision of food diplomacy, and then come up with a roadmap of integrating all what we were discussing right now on payments, cryptocurrency in the context of that scenario? Any thoughts on that?
Sounds like a question for you.
So anyway, I don't know how it is linked, but we do deal with food diplomacy. And in fact, last year when we had a lot of surplus of food grains, and we tried to export, especially wheat. But unfortunately, there was a heat wave and wheat production came down. So the other way that what we are looking at is that in the ITU2 context, we are in talks with UAE and Israel. The I2 is India, Israel, and UAE and US. So we are in talks with these four countries, basically to invest in Indian states in food grains to improve technology and also for export. So these talks are going on. You may be reading in the newspaper. So many things are going on. We also have a lot of training in our agriculture institutes of African countries so that their production also goes up. So yeah, a lot of food diplomacy is going on, but I am not able to link this.
Okay. Yeah. No, I think agree.
Hello.
Yeah.
My name is Vikas Baput. I am Zcon Solutions Software Product Development Outsourcing Company. My question is to Dilip about heard about Fed now, which is coming in US, and just would like to have your perspective on that versus UPI, and kind of follow-up questions. Are we doing something to kind of integrate or even disrupt SWIFT using UPI?
So right now, that's now in making for last 2-3 years now, and they have given the timeline of 24. The US has another P2P remittance system, which is Zelle, right? That is more like an interbank, which is very similar to IMPS technically. But see, the point is, as our Prime Minister said, and that's a discussion in G20 on a digital public infrastructure as well. There's a track on financial inclusion that we are ready to support the countries who are ready to look at our stack, who are ready to look at our expertise. And obviously, America being the largest country, right? I don't know whether it will fit in their narrative to take the technology from India. So I think that's where the issue may lie, right? Obviously, we believe that UPI is a kind of a platform, and that platform has a capability to create an innovation layer on top of that. So which is fairly flexible. It's like a payment trail. You can drive your customer's own money, which is the savings or current account, prepaid money, the credit money is now started. So technically any type of money can be used on UPI as a rail, but obviously it depends on that country and their choice to whether to use UPI or not. That is the first question. The second question is whether we are trying to replace the SWIFT or not. I don't think that is the objective right now. I think the objective is when the Indians are going outside or our diaspora, right? Or we want to send money outside. Can we make it real time and can we make it cost effective? I think that's the first objective what we have. And that's again a long objective, in fact. So having building the pipes with 30 top partners of India is going to take next 5 to 10 years time, right? So I think we have enough on our plate to not to disrupt anybody, but just get our objective done, what we want to do as a country, what we want to do.
Yeah, thanks. Let's take somebody from the back.
Hello, thank you very much. My question from Ms. Tanvi. Can we track the demand and supply in a organized way of cryptocurrency? Valuation part especially.
Yeah, so I think at a global level, it is tracked easily, right? Using on-chain data. But I think for the country level, we need to put in place some infrastructure which can sort of ring fence the activity in the country, right? And that is a proposal that we'd made a year ago of a wallet-based infrastructure, India wallet infrastructure, which can provide that kind of ring fence. If we make something like that, then it becomes very easy to regulate it, to track it, to allow, disallow things, to enforce rules on it. But that is also a sort of innovative approach. Not many countries have done that yet. At the moment, we are reliant on on-chain data, which, I think that field has progressed pretty well. It's fairly sophisticated, the blockchain analytics, blockchain forensics field. So there are a fair amount of reports, especially countrywide activity is tracked, I think, for at least the last 6 years or so.
Yeah, all right. Yeah.
Hello. Yeah, so my question is probably a very basic question. How is CBDC different from the UPI payments for a lay person like me, say?
So CBDC is the digital version of the cash. Actually, when you look at the CBDC app, which has been launched by RBI, you can see the digital version of your notes. Exactly, the tokens. It's in the tokenized format. Actually, at least in India, it's a settled debate that RBI has launched the retail CBDC in the token format, and the wholesale is account based format. So how it differs from the digital money? The digital money is the more centralized version of your money, which is held by the custodian. That custodian is the regulated entities, that is banks. In the CBDC also, there are two types of models possible. One is the custodian held, and second is the user held. So in the custodian held, again, the way bank has the core banking system to hold the digital money, the banks as the intermediaries will offer the wallets to hold those tokens, right? But when in the user held, user is able to download that tokens into his phone, and I can send money, those tokens to Tanvi in a user to user transfer without interference of the intermediary, right? So I think those are the typical differences between the, I'm not going to the technical part of it, but yeah.
Yeah.
Hi, my name is Kunal Gore. I'm a tech-savvy full-time trader. I have two questions, one for Ms. Tanvi. Is our CBDC going to be geolocation tagged when it's released for the retail? And for Mr. Dilip, we have seen a tremendous movement, a rapid and successful movement from RTGS, NEFT, IMPS to UPI, and now I hear UPI Lite. What next? So, thank you.
Okay, I think on geolocation, so I will not comment on that because I think the privacy framework is something that the RBI is looking into very seriously. It's more focused on anonymity though. So I think right now, if you see even payments, even with UPI, it is geolocation tag, right? Unless your location's on, you can't really process the payments. So there are certain data that are linked to the laws of the country, which I think will be enforced. But it's not something that we can comment on yet. The RBI is looking very seriously into privacy for the digital rupee.
So what next? I spoke about it. I think we are looking at $1 billion a day in next 2 to 3 years time. We are looking at the credit as a big driver of the economic growth, which RuPay credit card coming on UPI. And the third part is we are looking at a global interoperability, right? Which is connecting our top 30 partners. So these are 3 things which keep thinking about. And
all right, thank you. We have just about 3-4 minutes left. So at this point, I would like to invite the panelists to give any closing remarks, less than a minute each, starting with Lito. No, okay. Let's go ahead, Tanvi.
Yeah, I think, this is finance has always been a very big part of, I think, a level of power in the international system. I think now after the Russia war, it's really come to the fore. So I think this is an area where we need to pay a lot of attention as policymakers. We need to really go into the details of it and I think build policies which are looking 50 years ahead rather than 5 or 10 years ahead.
So I will start with the same thing, that the tweet which said that UPI has spoiled us when they go, people going abroad. So probably the effort will be of MEA with NPCI will be to take UPI abroad to as many countries as possible.
so let's spoil the world.
Let's spoil the world.
No, I think, as I said, a lot more to be done. I think let's look at the, putting all the efforts from an ecosystem standpoint to deliver, for any country, the digital payment transaction should be multiples of their population size. I think we are yet not there. And I think that would be the objective of NPCI as an implementing or execution agency of government and RBI to deliver to the country.
We still have 2 minutes. Let's take one more audience question.
Hello. My question would be related to the third-party apps through which UPI payments have been happening. So there have been occasions where they've not been very friendly and adverse situations where probably the payments have not gone through and not refunded. So my question would be, when some of these apps in the past, what I've heard is not been liable to the cyber police to give the information. So do we have better control today through for the transactions being happening through these apps? Is it more safer today? For example, Google Pays of the world.
No, 100% it is safe. I think all the third-party apps, banks app, non-bank apps treated at par. It's an equal opportunity for the banks and non-banks to provide the UPI apps. All of them we have signed the agreements. We do the annual due diligence for these apps from in terms of cyber security and those kind of things. We also have the FIU, the responsibility on reporting and investigation to all the apps. So I think technically, everybody is on the equal footing. The second part is look, I'm saying the UPI has grown dramatically, right? The ecosystem has not scaled up. The speed of growth has been higher compared to what our systems have been capacitized with. So yes, there has been some issues on delays on crediting and those kind of things, but mainly because of a lot of the low ticket transactions. Now with the RBI direction, we have built the online dispute resolution, which means that on using that, you can resolve the dispute. If there is the transaction is stuck between the sending bank or a receiving bank systems or NPCI systems, it can get resolved real time, right? So that's the system is in under rollout. And right now about 20% of the technical complaints are resolved automatically. Our objective is 75% in next few months' time. Once that is done, system is intelligent enough to resolve. If the transaction is stuck, can resolve automatically.
Okay, thank you very much for all the panelists and the audience.
Thank you so much. On behalf of PIC, I want to say a special thanks to our chair, Dr. Kabra, for making it such an interactive session. I'm going to request you to please hand over a token of appreciation to all of our panelists. And can I call upon Mr. Amit Paranspe, member PIC, to please also give a token of appreciation to our chair, Dr. Kabra. Thank you. Thank you so much. And may I request everyone on stage to please stay back for just a moment. We'll take a group photo now. If you could please come forward.